those seasons in life where it's busy and you're stressed and you're tired. And if you can only find one thing positive to think about your spouse, think about that. Thank God for that aspect of your spouse, and it's an upward spiral. If you think more positively about your spouse, you're going to begin feeling more positive.
You're speaking from conviction. I'm a little worried. You talk about this, why couples need to choose kind of who is going to win when they get into that argument. When you're getting into a little discussion, I've had people, text us and say, if you're Christian, you shouldn't argue. And I go, okay, but, the real world is you do come to some differences.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like that idea, thinking through who's going to win here. And I know your answer, obviously, but sometimes stopping to think that through in the middle of emotions is a little hard, but explain who wins.
Yeah, well, oftentimes we'll oppose our spouse. And
Oftentimes?
well, yes, because
Most of the time.
yes, when we're triggered, we're not thinking about our spouse and their pain, their feelings, how they're doing. All our pain is screaming. And so sometimes we end up setting it up that one of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose.
Yeah.
And then our team loses. So really looking at when we're entering into differences and differences of opinion, different likes, dislikes, that, what is it really that's going to work for our team? What's a win-win? So how can we win together? And I can think about several years back, we sold our house and we were moving into a new house. And the people buying our house wanted a lot of our furniture. So we kind of had a running list of what we could do for the new house. And it was very succinct. And so one time we were with all of our kids and the girls and I were talking about what I was going to purchase first. And so I was just going on and on, and we need that new couch and that table and blah, blah, blah.
What about our hot tub? What about
And all of a sudden he snapped, like right in the middle. And I was like, what just happened?
Oh, because it was so stressing me out because the list got so long that it was like double of the money that we were going to spend. And so it stressed me out to the point that I said, Aaron, you promise you'll stick in the budget and nothing you're talking about is in the budget. And all the kids wide-eyed looking at me like, what is wrong with Dad?
What just happened?
Budget master.
And so I'm kind of, huffing in my chair. And Aaron gets up and walks straight at me. And it was the first time in our 32 years of marriage that I really was like, is she going to grab me? Certainly she won't hit, but like, what's about to happen? She came right over and grabbed my cheeks with both her hands and held me. And she got real close. And I am so confused. I have no idea.
His eyes were like, what's happening?
What is going to happen? And she goes, I want you to remember one thing. I'm like, yes, ma'am. She goes, we are on the same team. And because of that, I won't spend a dime unless it's something that you and I agree to and we decide together. You matter and I matter. We'll figure this out together. Teammate. She kissed me and then just like dropped my head and I flung back in the chair. And then she goes right back over and the girls in her kept dreaming up of all this, whatever
That's
she was going to get.
beautiful.
It really was. We had taught that idea for years. But it was such a comfort being reminded that we are on the same team.
We're in this together.
But I got to ask the question, did she go over the budget?
She did not.
Way to go.
That was the
Somebody out there is thinking, well, did she go over?
Yeah.
And what'd you do
Right.
about it?
We even got different stuff than even was on the list, but we talked that through. And
Right.
that's what's
That's
cool
good.
about that.
Well
Is
done.
it just relaxes everybody.
Yeah, so true.
We didn't get a hot tub, though, so I'm still reeling.
You're angling for that.
Exactly.
So Jim, in the book, The Healthy Marriage Devotional, you write about the wrong formula couples use in conflict. So if you write about the wrong one, what's the right one?
No, that's a great question. I think Gene is probably better at this, and I think you taught me how to do this a little better over the years. You've just become so skilled at slowing down, thinking about what you want to say. And I think I've learned this through observing her and how she began to treat our conflict from time to time. And, she would say, let's deal with this later, or let's calm down, or whatever it might be. And you need that.
Yeah.
You need some cool head in the moment to say, I don't think this is the healthiest time to be doing
to
this.
take a break.
I would say I actually didn't come up with it myself. I really observed it and how Jean began to deal with those moments when we had conflict, and she would slow us down together. kind of say, let's take this up later tonight or
Yeah.
not right now. And those are some of the things. I mean, I'm not a big formula guy. That's my spontaneity.
Yeah, right.
So I even cringe a little thinking formula, but there are good predictive behaviors that we can do that give us better results. And that was part of it. Just how do we ratchet down the emotion in the moment so we can get to a better place emotionally and talk these things through. And that's, I think, the secret.
Well, even, I mean, it's not necessarily a formula, but, you know, in Matthew, where Jesus is saying, hey, why do you look at the dust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the log? And he does kind of give us a formula in order. First, get the... I always wanted to say, get the dust out of your brother's eye, because I'm so aware of what Erin could do in that moment to change or to do different so that I feel better.
I know.
I've tried to help her. It just
Well,
doesn't-
yeah,
And that
totally.
works so
Versus
well.
Right.
the right thing is, though, is how do I get the log out of my own eye? And what you're saying is that how do I take that break to allow my emotions to calm down?
Right.
Well, and we have choice
Yeah.
in what we do. I always thought, just do what comes naturally. That doesn't work,
No.
by the way. So being
No.
intentional, slowing it down, I can actually calm down inside and think rationally about what I want to do, how I want to show up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the scriptures talk to husbands to treat your wife in a tender, kind way, and we can't do that when our emotions are all heightened.
Yeah,
So
it's
even
true.
that
Yep.
requires that break that you're talking about. That's a good part of the
Well,
formula.
it's right in the Word, and we got to know the Word to apply the Word. So read the Word.
Helps.
Well, I have a question for you, Greg.
Oh boy.
This is good. I like it.
You've written a lot of books about marriage, and one of the strategies you urge couples to use is something you call heart
Yeah.
talk. So what is heart talk, and how does it work, especially when there's a conflict
Yeah.
between
You're the one that came
husband
up with
and
that?
wife?
No, that was probably Bob Paul, our colleague, that came up with that.
That's funny.
You know, one of the things that I learned that was so helpful is that there's a great researcher, John Gottman, and he says that 70% of all arguments are perpetual. In other words, there's not a solution. And what that means is that you think about that we're trained to do conflict resolution, to find the solution, to fix whatever the problem is, and that's not reality. The truth is that most of our conflicts are about personality differences. Erin's extroverted, I'm introverted. We're not going to change. That's not going to change.
Although it is.
You become more
you've
introverted,
prayed
which is
long
good.
enough.
but so it's not how do we resolve that personality differences or even lifestyle. You know, Erin and I battle over lights being on in our home. Erin, lifestyle-wise, loves having every light on, and
Not
it drives
every
me
light.
crazy.
I like to create a mood in the house.
Last
Don't
night,
ever use the every
went
or most or always.
well, it's always. I'm telling you. I went to bed early last night, got up because something was bugging me, and I realized someone left the hall light on all night
yes.
long. Like
I
all
can
the
see
money
that.
that we
was
wasted.
30 cents.
We could have given that to focus on the family, but that's gone now because the lights are on. That stuff's not going away. And so the goal really, for me, changed from how do we resolve or solve the problem to how do we repair it, which requires us to lean in more to the emotion. And that's the heart talk part. Teddy Roosevelt said, people don't care what you know, so they don't care how you're going to solve it, resolve it, until they know that you care. And,
right.
and that took me a long time to realize actually the best place to begin for me with when we're trying to work through a conflict is just to lean into the emotions, to care about how did that impact Erin? Not how do we solve it, how do we figure out what the right temperature setting is for our home, which is 65 degrees, by the way. It's just caring about that. So it took me to learn that I have to look at our conflict very differently and go, how do we just repair the inevitable stuff that comes up around the differences and all that. And that just means the heart talk part is prioritizing how that impacted her heart, how that caused her to feel.
Yeah.
And so, you know, whenever we argue now, I can always go to that place of going, okay, so when this and this and this happened, how did that make you feel? What was that like for you? And just care.
Yeah.
And that's transformed our conflict because it's the right goal.
And you're tipping into the question I wanted to ask everybody, but Gene, you don't have to answer this one. When it comes to the intimacy issue, I mean, intimacy is much bigger than just physical intimacy. It's that emotional intimacy. And this is a great battle between male and female. You know, it's part of it is brain chemistry and wiring and what the Lord, how He's created us.
Yeah.
But you mentioned developing that intimacy throughout the day, and then being able to combine that for emotional intimacy, physical intimacy. It's probably, finances and physical intimacy are probably the two biggest problems that arise in marriage.
Yeah. Huge arguments. Right?
So in that regard, speak to that right way to see this and how to sow the seeds, going back to yesterday, so that, this doesn't become a big debate issue in your marriage.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about on day one, we're busy. People run at fast paces, and small kids or big kids or work or church commitments.
We're exhausted,
Right. And so we encourage couples to look at things that are already happening on their plate and utilize those to build connection throughout the day. Simple things, we call them connection rituals. How do we say goodbye when someone's leaving? How do we show each other we care about each other before we part ways for the day? Do we check in throughout the day? How do we greet each other when we come back home? Are we dropping what we're doing and turning toward and meeting each other with a holy kiss, greeting each other
I like
with a holy
kiss.
kiss.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, really.
But especially, how are we saying goodnight? At the end of the day, what are we doing in that moment? Are we praying together? Are we offering praise to each other? Are we affirming each other before we go to sleep? Because that's the last word our spouse is going to hear from us before they drift off to sleep.
And each of those things you just mentioned, those do not take much time at all.
And
what
they're
you've
already
mentioned
happening.
is probably 3 minutes totally in the day. And it is in part dying to ourselves. Maybe you don't feel like affirming your spouse, but that's the right thing to do. And as you we affirm one another, then you feel more in love with your spouse, and they become more kinder and gentler towards you.
And it kind of feeds on each other in a good way, a positive way. We talked about the secrets of a happy marriage through the survey results. And one thing in there was find activities that you like to share together. So, Gene, you've done a great job. I mean, you could care less about football years ago, and of course, I would want to watch a football game. But
it breaks our heart.
Over time, Gene would sit there with me and tell me more about that guy's family. I don't know anything about his family. Does he have children? I don't know. but it was fun. I mean, and you've really done that. I mean, you've become a fan, and you sit with me for a bit of the game, or all the game if it's a Broncos game.
Right, but you're right. Initially, I didn't care, but I wanted to be around you.
Yeah.
But, oh no, the NFL has my number. I'm their target audience. They do those little side stories about the family. And then I
pulls you in.
The hook is in.
Yes, so I have become quite a fan. But it started with just wanting to spend time with you and getting into your world.
Yeah, I think the other thing, although now it's a little more difficult physically because I've got a hip issue, but walking with you is something I try to do with you a little more.
Right, and that's true. And I love to go on kind of easy hikes, and I know Jim has done that with me. Not because you love hiking, but because he knows I enjoy it. We drive together, so you talk together. And I would say, one of the simplest things we do now, but we do have more time and space in our life, our morning time together. So we'll have coffee together. And we do often have a quiet time together, do some reading and praying. And that, I think we both enjoy it, and it is such connection time for us.
Really bonding, That's one of the things every couple should do, a Christian couple,
right?
For sure.
And the beauty of what you're talking about is the reason why that's important is because we're always changing. And so if we don't have those little Devo times or those walks to where we're asking the questions to stay current and updated, then Aaron and I will lose sight of each other. We start to drift, and then all of a sudden we feel like married roommates. And so that's what's so cool about that. It's not just, hey, we'll have coffee together. It's you're using that to ask each other, hey, tell me about your day, or how you feeling about this? What's God been teaching you? All those conversation starter kinds of stuff.
I want to finish that idea of intimacy. You have talked a lot about the importance of sharing things with your spouse first. I don't know if she wants to know my golf score. I don't know, Jean. Are you?
Depends on how
happy
impressive
with
it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not.
I don't love hearing the golf score, but if it's important to you, then
Yes.
I want
Just
you
as
to
an
share
example.
that with me.
But what are you getting at with share things with your spouse first?
Yeah, it's kind of that idea biblically of first fruits in just giving our very best.
Oh, that's a good concept.
I know for me, I've had the privilege of preaching, at church before. In when there's multiple services, what really stood out is that first time that I share that particular message. Man, I bring the passion, the emotion, the energy. It's the best in that sense. The second or third service, it's polished. I figured out now the right timing, but it's that first time that we share something, it has all that emotion, the passion, and that energy that Aaron deserves. And so why I want to share things with her first, because I want to offer that gift of going, man, even if it's clunky and I don't have all the right details, or I go on and on about something, if she gets to hear that first, she gets to see probably the real me versus this is my third time to say it, so now I've got it down and it's even funnier and I don't cry this time. That's the benefit of sharing with her first.
It's good. That's a great concept. I'm kind of smiling because, in terms of sharing with your spouse first. So I remember one time we did a broadcast with a marriage expert, and I can't remember all the content, but they said, you need to do 3 things when you see each other at the end of the day. Have a long kiss, look at each other in the eye for 10 seconds, and then ask one another how your day was. So I that's really good. I like that. So I get home that night and I can pop in the door. Hon, come give me a big hug.
That's right.
And
We're locking
1,
lips.
2, 3, trying to get to 10. And then I'm like, okay, kiss me. Big kiss. And then I said, was there something about your day that was great or not so great? And Jean goes, who did you record with today?
She's on to you.
And I thought that was so funny because she said,
it
it's
was
not
obvious, but he's
That's right.
trying.
it wasn't the
Yes.
normal way I would come home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes I do that. I still do that.
See,
when there's
it's
a
about
great
growth.
tip
That's
about
right. Yeah.
marriage, I'll come
Oh.
home and Jean's my guinea pig.
But I don't
You're
ask
sharp.
anymore.
You haven't.
I
Who was
don't,
your guest?
because that's a slam. I mean, he's trying. Yeah, he's trying. So I no
But in the
longer
back of your
ask
head,
who
in the
you've
back of your
recorded
head,
with.
you are thinking.
Sure.
I wonder who he
That's
recorded
okay.
with. So-
That's okay. You're trying.
Well, that's a good thing.
Jim, I'll never forget Aaron and I celebrating our 25th anniversary on a cruise. So we're up on the top, sun is dipping below.
Wow.
It's beautiful, and I was all inspired. It felt like a really great season in our marriage. So I say to Aaron, hey, how would you rate our marriage from 0
yes.
to 10? Thinking certainly an 8.9, if not 9.
Leave her room to grow.
Yeah, and
yes.
so she goes, if I'm being honest, probably a 6 or a 7. And I felt so devastated,
You were
thinking
so insulted.
I was such a failure as a husband, even though we're sitting in this beautiful place. And I know in the book you asked a very similar question, which takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
You got to be brave. I think you asked Jean, what are 2 things that I can be doing to improve our marriage? Wow.
Yeah, and I'll get to that, but we did have that discussion too,
Did you
the
really?
rating game. I think I was a 9 and she was a 3.
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, I don't recommend rating.
Well,
That's
wait,
not a
like
good
you
thing.
rated her a 3 and she rated
No,
you a 9?
no. I
Oh,
rated our marriage a
gosh.
9.
And
A
she's
little. She said, "I think it's a 3."
Wow.
Okay, which led then to the next step.
Yes.
I remember taping with a marriage expert, and I come home and I say, "What are 2 things I can do to improve our marriage?" And she well, 1, boom, and told me,
Yeah.
and 2. boom. And I think he even had a third.
And 3 and
Just in
4.
case.
A bonus.
So, but I mean, it's like, wow, she had this ready to go. And I was kind of shocked by that, actually.
Which I have always been shocked that you were shocked by that. Yes,
That's true. You are prepared for everything. Every
You should
potential
know
outcome.
that you need to improve.
Right.
I didn't realize it had been 15 years she had been waiting for that question. But it was good. I mean, it wasn't dramatic stuff. It was like, I just want like heart talk. I want more meaningful talk. I don't want to talk about superficial things always, which that was good. And then I can't even now remember the second one.
I actually can't remember the other one either. But
all right, well, here we go.
obviously, I've been waiting for you to ask me
hang
that.
on. Okay.
But
What
it's hard. Why do you think it's so hard for guys to hear that sort of feedback from our wives?
Because we'll have to change the way we behave. That's it. But here's the question. Okay, what are 2 things I could do to improve our marriage
boy.
now?
Oh, he's being brave.
Yeah, I'm out there. Oh, that is awesome.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't this
I
last time.
really
It was like
have
1,
to think
2,
about that.
3. So that's an improvement.
Yeah.
That is definitely an improvement.
Oh, what a place to end the program
Yes.
today.
Jim has no improvement points. Yeah.
Well, and I just want to share with listeners or those watching. I mean, you may be thinking that we each have, of course, we have perfect marriages. You know, you two are therapists
Good
and
enough
write
marriages,
books,
right?
and
Yeah.
Jim heads up Focus on the Family. But we don't have perfect marriages because we're imperfect people.
Right.
We will always be imperfect people. But I do encourage people to stick with it. You know,
totally.
your perfect person isn't out there. They're likely in your home with you. And it is all about, you know, trying to become a better you.
Right.
You know, working on me, working on my relationship with the Lord, looking at my heart, which helps me become a better spouse. And if I'm kinder to Jim, he becomes kinder and a better spouse to me. So it really is worth working on.
That's a great thought.
Absolutely.
Well, some pretty profound insights from our panel, which included Jim and his wife Jean and our colleagues Dr. Greg and Aaron Smalley. They've been talking about a book, Jim, that you put together, The Healthy Marriage Devotional, 365 Daily Inspirations to Bring You Closer Together.
Well, it's always a good idea when you do a marriage devotional to make sure your spouse is involved. That's that rule number 1.
Yes.
But I did this with one of our colleagues, Kenny Chapman, who helped me collect and organize various tips and stories about marriage that we featured on this program and on my Focus on the Family 90-second commentary. And it was a lot of fun reviewing that content again with Jean, Greg, and Aaron and getting their input on the project. Of course, we'd like to pass this resource on to you. If you can send a gift of any amount to Focus on the Family, we'll say thank you by sending you the devotional. And you're helping other marriages by supporting the ministry.
Yeah, donate today when you call 800, the letter A in the word family, to request your copy of the book, or check the program description for more details.
And when you get in touch, please consider a year-end gift to the ministry. A lot of families are planning their end-of-year giving right now, and we'd appreciate your consideration of Focus on the Family in that process. The bulk of our yearly budget is raised during this critical time here at the year-end, and we need to hear from you. Your support helps us give families hope as we work together to strengthen marriages, empower parents, save preborn babies, and so much more.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back next time as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.